Hi guys, I am so excited to be talking to you at the end of this week. First of all, before we get to the big results of the cube name and whether or not you guessed it correctly, I wanted to first just thank you all very much for everything you shared in your observations this week. A lot of you shared some personal stories, and I thought it was just wonderful just how many examples that we have in our class of people who are actually using the scientific method to solve problems in their everyday lives. And some of those problems were pretty serious, involving parents or loved ones or our children. So I thought it was really great that you guys were able to connect. Maybe you had the language before this class to connect specific observations and the scientific method to your own lives, but maybe you didn't. Maybe that's a new connection. Either way, I think it's fantastic. This week was all about the difference between sort of our regular observations in our everyday lives and the observations that scientists make. And a big part of it had to do with what we do afterwards with those observations. And they mentioned Darwin and Darwin's finches. And it wasn't until he, got home that he realized that there was a big connection between the way the different species had evolved. But had he not followed up on his observations and done some really critical thinking, he may not have come to those conclusions. And what I was so excited about in the observations that I read, and even in your own personal experiences, was that you did a lot of that critical analysis following up to the initial observations, and that really is the key to science. So, okay, I don't have anybody to do my big drum roll, but one of the things that I'm giving extra credit for in one of the assignments this week was the cube activity, in which you had to guess the name on the side of the cube that was not filled in. And you had to do it solely based upon the names on the other sides and the numbers. Part of what I also wanted you to guess was the numbers that should be in the upper right and the lower left-hand corner. So, for the big reveal, the answer is... I'm not going to tell you the answer. This is my favorite part. I hope to frustrate some of you. I hope some of you are going to be like, what do you mean you're not going to tell me the answer? Well, I'm actually not going to tell you the answer for a couple of important reasons in science. One, science is very frustrating, and we don't always get answers to the questions that we ask. And learning to live in that frustration is part of being a good scientist. The other reason, and this is really like the most important reason I think for not telling you, has to do with the power of indirect observations. If you remember, we talked a little bit about in my last video the different layers of the earth and how we know what they are. We've never seen the inside of the earth, but we have an excellent idea not only of the different minerals and rocks that make up the earth, but that some of the layers are liquid, some of the layers are solid, and precisely what those boundaries are. How do we know the outer core is a solid? How do we know how deep down you have to go to get, or excuse me, the outer core is actually a liquid, the inner core is a solid. But we know that by indirect observations, seismic waves, things we can't see, and yet those indirect observations are things that we hold to be true. So my point is, if you used the scientific method and you made a hypothesis and you tested your hypothesis by coming up with a name on that final side and the numbers based upon your observations from the other sides, there can only be one right answer, and that's the answer that you came up with. What that answer is, I don't need to tell you. And the cool thing about science is that in some ways, it doesn't even matter. The internal structure of an atom is very similar to this. We've never seen an atom. Even with these great electron scanning microscopes that we have these days, we still haven't actually seen the atom. We've seen some close images, but we know so much about the structure of the atom through other types of tests and experiments and indirect observations, things we can't see but we know have to be true. Dark matter, One of our students is writing or did his research on dark matter. This is another thing that we can't see, but we know to be true because of lots of other reasons. So the name that you chose is correct based on your indirect observations, and you can hold that to be true without me telling you the answer. So I hope you're not too frustrated with me. I hope you're enjoying the course. I really appreciated all of the great discussion board posts, and even though it's not required to post on other people's posts on the discussion board, I love the fact that some of you have done that. It really does help create a class community. So don't forget, this weekend all the stuff for week 3 is due. I'm about halfway through grading your week 2 projects, which are looking fantastic, by the way. So great job, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will be talking to you all next week. Bye-bye.